Alright, so moment of truth here. I'm finally going to try to install the stern fuel tank this time. The bow one is another project, so needs a shelf to be built and stuff, but the stern one should be a drop-in. We'll see.
Okay, we should probably take a step back here. This fuel tank project started about 3 months ago.
6.5?
Yeah, the first one is 6.5, yeah.
Calico Skies is a Sabre 36, which is designed to be a robust coastal cruiser, maybe completing an occasional jaunt to Bermuda. One of the things she is severely lacking in is fuel tankage. Currently, she only holds 18 gallons of diesel. Yes, you heard that right. Only 18 gallons. That means fuel needs to be added via jerry jug every 24 hours of motoring. Since we knew the boat would be out of commission during my recovery from surgery, we decided that this would be a good time to increase Calico's internal fuel tankage from 18 gallons to 50 gallons by increasing the stern tank capacity from 18 gallons to 25 gallons and installing a new bow tank contributing an additional 25 gallons.
We were looking at our jerry jugs and they're due for replacement again. It's gonna be like on a 2 or 3 rotation. We don't have covers made. That'd obviously help, but did you see how clear our side decks were? Like, I'm getting kind of sick of having the jerry jugs there. So started exploring options for adding more fuel inside the boat. Primarily because Grace is needing surgery in a month, so when else will I have the boat decommissioned for this long? So it's a perfect opportunity to enhance it. So I know the tank down here, other Sabre owners have been able to get 30 gallons in there. We have 18, so that's 12 more, so it's like 2.5 jerry jugs. But what we're looking at now, there's a giant space underneath our bed that has like drogue lines and spares, but we're thinking about taking that plastic tank out and turning it into a fuel tank, and then have a fuel transfer pump that runs from back there to fill up. This is a day tank underneath the cockpit. It's obviously a bit of work, a bit of expense for tanks and pumps, but I think it'll be well worth it. So I am gonna start ripping open that tank, get the measurements, and then send it off to tank manufacturer to figure out what I'm doing. So Sabre is usually pretty good about giving access to things. I see set screws here, so this board is longer on this side, shorter, and fits in perfectly over here. So I think if I remove these screws, this whole board will come up, and hopefully I can just take the slide the tank up and out. You see it's starting to come loose now. Okay. I would say the Sabre does an above average job on accessing systems. Like, that came off in about 15 minutes. Now I just gotta see how they did the tank. Hopefully it's as easy. For some reason, the holding tank is foam sealed around the corners. So I went into the boat yard, scrap yard. If I'm doing long and thin, I kind of jam and break the foam, so I have more ability to move it. Alright, so day 2 of the holding tank removal chronicles. Today I am definitely going no more nuclear. If this handsaw doesn't work, I'm going to Sawzalls. This thing needs to come out, it's holding me up. I can rebuild anything that I do destroy out of fiberglass when the new tank comes, so. Tank is budging, which is good, but I made an unfortunate discovery. Like too much fluid. Ugh. Gross. I got a brand new shop vac, which is not gonna be very new. I don't really know what to do. It was emptied. I don't know if seawater flowed in from the vent line or what, but yeah, it's unfortunate. That was a bit of a to-do. Because I had to drain 15 gallons out of the holding tank. I have no idea how that was in there because we emptied it. For sure. I don't know if seawater came in through that vent line, like siphoned in on the seas. I have no idea. Regardless, it's out. So it is budging now. It can move. I just got to figure out how to get everything, all the attachments off, so I can lift it out of the section and finally measure it. It's still hitting on the cabinetry, so I'm gonna go a little fine-tune and just take it out. Hope this tank sits outside of the boat. I don't know. Sabre is usually pretty good, but it's pretty narrow right here. Victory is mine. Take that. It's finally out. It took a little bit of finagling. Only like 3 hours, which isn't terrible. It just feels good to have that out. It's kind of gross, but gonna get some measurements off that and have a fuel tank made, and then pop a small holding tank in somewhere else. There's plenty of space in that locker below the bed, which we don't really go in that often because it's hard to access. So this will be a way bigger improvement on Calico. And look at the little jerry canless lines. I have to see what kind of space I'm working with here. This is where our old holding tank was. So I'm in the process just removing all this foam.
Our goal is to make use of every little ounce of space we have in there. So that is one of the reasons why Bill is removing the foam. Is also smelly since it was around the holding tank.
That means we technically have like 2 inches more on the sides. If we could find a tank, it'd be nice to find an off-the-shelf tank. It'd be cheaper and easier, but we just don't know what space we're working with.
Bill just started hitting fiberglass. So I'm gonna suit up and get in there and clean out the foam that he just ground, and then we'll do it all over again. But I think for the next round, he's got to put on a mask because there's definitely a lot of fiberglass coming up. Hate fiberglass.
So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this tabbing away. I started the process, gotta get a mask on and close up the door, just so we could go higher on the tank if we wanted to. Well, the old tank ended here, but I might go up to here just to get more space. So from here to here or so. These full mask respirators are so much more comfortable. I could just do sheets.
Yeah, or if you wanted to, you could profile this and then give them a template.
Working on doing a little templating today. And just trying to figure out what best to do with the space here. Now that holding tank is fully out, there's a lot of space in here for tankage. So what I'm looking to do is build a flat floor on the bottom. And that is what this is going to be related to. This is going to be cardboard template for plywood. And the reason for that is aluminum can't sit in water, so it has to be slightly elevated. I also don't want to put a pinch point on the tank, so I want to have a nice flat bottom to support the weight. So hopefully this fits. I'll tweak it, and then once that's done, I'll put it to plywood, and we'll lay that down dry fitted before I will glass it in eventually. But it's going to be dry fitted for now, and then take measurements, send off to a tank manufacturer. Sender, and then it's the... While I've been in battery wiring hell, Dimitri spent the morning building a mock-up template for our fuel tank. So what we're doing is we're filling out this view. They want all these measurements on this tank. So this is the top view of the tank.
Okay.
These are all the senders I told them, but they're not measured. I kind of approximated it. They now, because this is like, this is where our diesel engine picks up. This is where it puts the return line. This is the vent for like when you're filling the tank. There's a fill cap here. Our diesel heater. So this is the new width of our tank, about 14.5 inches. And you can see we have 15.5, so we're leaving ourselves a little bit of clearance. The center of it is 6.5 inches from the back wall. So
The pickup was the
front one.
The front one, and
It's a little bit bigger. So the fuel, the diesel engines don't use all the fuel that is pumped to them. It's not like a gas engine. So what happens is whatever fuel is burned goes away in the exhaust, but the rest of it is dumped back into the tank. So in a way, diesel tanks are kind of like polishing their fuel because you're running it through the filters, into the engine, back into the tank. So that's why there's 2 fittings. Well, today is the moment of truth. I am starting the process of getting the stern tank in. Hopefully I measured right and it fits in the locker. It's always a little nerve-wracking with custom orders. They weren't cheap. The 2 tanks were about $1,200 shipped in. So I just started emptying out the sail locker, and I borrowed some jerry jugs, got to move about 18 gallons of diesel. Step number 1 will be to get all the fuel out of the old tank, about 18 gallons worth. It's pretty full. And then I got to break all the connections, so the fuel fill, the vent line, the electrical sensors, there's like diesel heater in there, so there's quite a few connections, and then try to drop the new one in. Everything was so nice, now I'm like, boom. It's all yachty, now it's not.
Yeah, that's the hard part about the fact that we took this vasectomy break, and then launched the boat, had to do stuff related to that, had to get our home livable, tackled some small projects just to get materials and parts out of the boat, and then still have this big one left to do. But it is what it is, and we're just super stoked to be actually tackling the last really big project on the list. But once you haven't been in the hole for a while,
Yeah, the screwdriver, dear.
it's not easy. Yeah, which one you want? Phillips?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I went ahead and broke all the hoses off. This is for our diesel heater. Now I gotta start siphoning the fuel out, which shouldn't be too bad. Probably be a little messy. I'm pulling out my 3rd jerry jug full of fuel. I think that's all I got out of the tank. So I'm not even carrying it. It's not even full.
Here.
Yeah. So I have the new tank here with me. I am just gonna go ahead and label in Sharpie for ease of my installation what everything is. This is from our bow. This is engine return line, fill pipe, and this is vent. So this didn't come with the tank. This is the pickup for the heater. And notice it's a little bit shorter than the tank itself. And that's just so the diesel heater can't use all our fuel. We could always use our engine. So you keep these a little shorter than the primary pickup for the main, because you don't want to let the heater eat all your fuel on it.
At least it's not like 100 degrees.
True.
Trying to think of ways this could be worse to make you feel better.
It could always be worse.
You've been in this hole sweating your what off so many times.
Aluminum tanks cannot be deposited directly on like woodwork, because that creates condensation, which actually destroys the aluminum tanks. I wasn't worried about that because we had a plastic tank, but I can see Sabre actually cut a hole in the shelf, and there's rubber strips glued down that'll keep the tank elevated and let condensation evaporate. So that's good. I don't have to worry about that.
Great. Go Sabre.
Good old Sabre.
Might not have been made to be a cruising boat, a long distance cruising boat, but
Well built
it was
boat in
well
general.
built. Which, sidebar, is a good thing, since, for those of you who don't know, we actually bought the boat well before we decided to go cruising around the world. If we hadn't bought such a well-built boat, I don't know where we'd be right now, because I don't think we'd be comfortable doing what we're doing in a boat of lesser quality. So the fact that she doesn't have a lot of the cruising, long-distance cruising stuff, like big fuel tanks and everything, so far hasn't held us back.
Well, this has turned into a real boat project. I've had this tank in and out like 4 times now. It's not easy. So the problem with the fill pipe is really close to steering cable, so I need to get it as far towards the wall as I can. And so I had to remove all the wiring harness bundles and hose bundles and try to elevate it. I'm gonna try it one more time with everything elevated out of the way, and hopefully it works. So the fuel tank will fit. I had to remove all this bundle of wires though. So I think I'm gonna have to take it back out, and that'll just be easier with the tank out of the way. So this will be the 5th time this tank has come out.
It's one hot, long day in the hole.
Yeah, I think I give up for today before I break something. That's one thing I've learned over the years of doing this. Everything is pretty much working, but I cannot get the fuel fill on. It's like a thick 1-inch hose. It's about 5.5 inches bigger than the tank was in terms of height, so it used to kind of come down nicely to an angle. Now it's like I'm trying to force the bend. I just can't get it to go. I tried a heat gun, I tried like a hose hook, but I think I had to do like a 90-degree elbow or something like that, like with hose 90 degrees, more back to the hose or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, what, 7 o'clock? So I think it's time to call it quits before I break something today. Day 2 of trying to do this fuel tank. Reflected on a little bit, I think the best thing I could do is cut a hole to make the hose have a little bit better of an angle. I think the reason I'm fighting it so much is I'm trying to bend it into too tight of a radius, which probably isn't great for the hose anyway. So I'm gonna make a little relief cut into one of the bulkheads so that the hose could travel better in order to accommodate the taller tank. Okay, so hopefully that cut gives me enough space to maneuver this hose onto here. That was way easier, and now it's clear of the steering cable back here. So now let's get the hose clamps on and call it a day. That worked. It was so much easier once I cut that hole.
That's awesome.
That's why sometimes it's better to work harder. I mean smarter, not harder.
Yeah, and
sometimes it's better to work smarter, not harder. Like take a night off and don't try to monkey it on like I was trying to do. Alright, so the area is pretty tidied up now. I'll take it down and show you. Ooh. Got the blower back here reinstalled, the new ducting, straps are on, fuel lines are in. So now the fuel tank is hooked up, I am gonna go ahead and add fuel to the tank. I'm also gonna try to start the engine to make sure everything is working and no leaks are present because we touched a lot of different fuel lines. We usually don't use a Baja filter because it's so hard to do that at sea. But one of the benefits of this new system is that we're going to be running a ray core from our bow fuel tank to our stern fuel tank, and we'll let the fuel pump touch the back. So for this first refueling, I'm going to filter the fuel because it is a fresh tank and I don't want to have troubles in the future. But we'll show you more of the system later, but basically we're going to be filling the boat in the front, have a fuel transfer pump through a ray core into the stern tank down there. I'm going to try to bleed the lines right now, so I'm going to turn on the ignition and not start the motor. Let me listen to the pump because I can't hear it.
Yeah, it's a pretty hectic weekend here in Penasco. Trying to listen to
the fuel lines, but I can't hear anything.
Real life. Can't make it up.
Fuel. Ray core is bubbling. So I think I may have flipped the return line and the return line and the pickup line. I stuck my tongue on what I thought was the return line and it was kind of suctioning a little bit. I know it's not supposed to touch hoses, but that would explain the air bubbles we're hearing. Does that mean the pump is pushing air through the engine and it's going into the tank, bubbling it in the pickup rather than sucking fuel? Of course, I jammed the return line onto the pickup really, really good, so it's really stuck, so I didn't want to leak there, so that'll teach you to be diligent. Oh, and I did label them, like with a Sharpie, but the diesel, when I was messing with it, wiped all the Sharpie marks off, in my defense. All right, so I just flipped the fuel lines around. Hopefully this time the fuel pump changes its pitch. Okay, so that was the problem. I had the lines flipped. Took a little bit of a while to get it going. I had to bleed the system just by cracking open the ray core, let the air bubbles out, and then the pump primed it. She's running at idle now, which is good.
Okay, so I just came back from a quick walk. I feel great. Bill and I are tackling a tough project today, or we're gonna start to tackle it. And that is installing our last fuel tank. And that is the one that goes in the V-berth, which is here. And as you guys know, the boat's been pretty clean. Well, I'll just point down. Oh, another rad spot. It's been clean. Like, you know, areas have been organized, but doing this project means blowing things up again, and that's one of the reasons why we've been putting it off. So everything that's in the V-berth has to come out. We need some crap from back here, which is what Bill's looking for now, some tools and stuff. And I think it's gonna be a 3-day project. So I think we're gonna take the mattress topper off and put it here, and that's where I'm gonna sleep. And that's as much as I've figured out right now. But today we're going to be fitting the tank in, dry fitting it in. Then we're going to be actually fitting it in. And then we're going to be epoxying the shelf. one of the reasons we went with this exact size so we could fit it through the door.
Now we'll get to the bulkheads is the next. Oh yeah, it'll go in.
Yes.
That would have been interesting. Okay, so she physically does get through the doors. Woo! So this is the vent line, and that is going to snake underneath and out to the anchor locker area. This is the fill pipe, which is going to come from the closet area, and then this is what the pump is hooked up to. That'll suck fuel out of this and put it to the back tank. I kind of wish I hadn't put it this dead center. My logic was dead center should be where all the fuel pools, but looking at the shelf here, I'm gonna have to now adjust this for this fitting, which kind of sucks. This big beam goes across here, but I'm gonna make a cut in that to make it allow this thing to fit. But if I put it a little bit off center, it would have been better, but you can't think of everything at once. It's so hard to do, and we ordered this when I wasn't even here. So this is a template of the shelf that I'm gonna build that fits in the bow of the boat. I'm a little concerned about the tank having pinch points on the sides, so I want to ensure this is high enough. But in thinking about this is a flat model, cardboard. I actually have 3/4 inch plywood, so that's actually going to lift it up another 3/4 of an inch. So I think to start with, I'm going to go with this, and then we're going to cut the wood, put it in the bottom of the boat, put the tank on top, make sure it's not like pinching anywhere, the tank on the sides, and then we're going to epoxy the shelf and let it overnight so no water can damage the wood.
Yeah.
Okay, so the shelf is in. Let's see how the tank fits now. Perfect. I meant to do that.
Yeah.
Like a glove.
Totally unplanned Patreon pitch. But we take pictures and send videos.
Real-time updates.
That's good. Real-time updates. As we're doing whatever we're doing in our regular life. If you join Patreon, you would have known about this probably a month ago. And you've seen it as it unfolded. I just heard the ding go off. That's why I thought of that. For our group, our WhatsApp group we send the pictures to. So yeah, okay. It fits. That was I think this is one of the scarier parts. I think we've said that, but maybe haven't really emphasized the fact that this is where our holding tank used to be. And we are gonna put another one in. It's gonna be much smaller than the one that we had in there. We're just not sure where we're gonna put it yet.
This is where I sort of wish I had put the fitting a little bit differently. I did it dead center. This is the pickup fitting. I did it dead center, assuming that the tank would have the most fuel right here, dead center. But if I put it off a little bit, I wouldn't have to now make a notch in this beam. As you can see, it's not lining up here. So I made one more cut here to hopefully make it fit over the tank. What I am doing right now is preparing this board for epoxy. One of the killers for aluminum fuel tanks is the condensation gets trapped. So I'm just drilling some holes, let water run down the board. If water ever got on here,
Yeah.
we want to drain. But I also did buy some foam rubber strips that I'm going to be putting on here to keep the tank just a little bit elevated, so it allows pathways for water to run down.
Just moving along.
Just because I can.
We do.
All right, we're back to mixing epoxy. I thought I was past this point. Yeah, it's just painted.
Nice job.
Maybe I'll dry quickly. It's pretty warm.
Yeah, it's a hot day.
Today I am going to attempt to epoxy in the shelf. I also am going to 5200 some foam strips on the bottom of the tank to deal with condensation. I've been reading a lot of the ABYC standards on fuel tank installations, just trying to get an understanding of what I'm supposed to be doing. So just starting to think about the plumbing and getting this thing strapped down. So once I strap that thing down, it should be nice and secure, and I'll give a little bit of airspace for it to breathe. This should be the last time this tank has to come in and out of the boat. day 3 of this fuel tank installed. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, the plumbing end of this. It's a little bit complicated because it's not a drop-in tank, it's a brand new tank. Here's my vents line, it's gonna start running back this way. Goes in here. I'm gonna have to cut a hole for the fuel fill, which is gonna go in this closet as well, next to the holding tank pump out. And I'm gonna run the actual fuel line to the back tank along the bilge. I'm gonna go ahead and mount this, which is my fuel transfer pump. It's gonna go in the locker. Haven't figured out exactly where I'm gonna wire it to yet, but I'm gonna get this set up to connect to the fill pickup. Oh, I totally thought I was filming installing the hosing, but it was just taking photos on my GoPro, so that was useless. But to rewind, I just mounted the pump with some screws and some rubber pads and put on a couple hose clamps. And now we have the pump installed. That's the fuel pickup. That's the pump. That's going to the back tank. That feels good. Oh, man, it's been a mission today. All the cabinetry is all back together. I started putting stuff in here. There's air inverter, fuel filters, drogue. This is the fill hose.
And this is officially turned into, if it wasn't before, I think you guys can see that it certainly is now.
It's running, this is the fuel fill hose. Everything has to go downhill, so you don't want to have any loops where it goes below the level of tank and traps diesel, so I just had to drill a new hole because there's no conduits at this height to get to the closet.
So it's hose is going to go under here and into the closet.
I think here where I started removing this, and then up. The vent line's going to go in a similar location, which is this one I just ran through.
Sometimes, even with all the experience we have with this stuff, you really have to like start before like you think of everything, and actually you can't, at least for us, like we don't want to think about projects like too much sometimes, because if you blow them up in your mind too much, then they get too big and then you don't want to do them. So I think we thought about this one like just the right amount before we did it.
We have the hoses run for the fill. Had to drill a hole in the glass here.
When Bill was drilling this hole, there's actually fiberglass.
It's tabbing right here. I didn't see behind the vinyl.
But I was sitting over here and saw like the fiberglass dust cloud come up and all these traumatic memories. That's actually not surprising. I mean, the boat is so
overbuilt.
Overbuilt, yeah. Drilling holes in the boat.
Pretty thick deck, huh? A nice clean bustle core for sure. Why'd it go down there? Grace is inspecting my vacuuming job. We create a little bit of fiberglass dust, which she hates.
This is like the end of every project.
I don't have the attention to detail for this kind of thing, so I knew I needed adult supervision.
You can see it in the light, like it's like a white powder and it sparkles.
Oh,
it's the telltale sign of
fiberglass.
Real life. This is what doing a project of this magnitude looks like on a 36-foot boat when you live on it full time. I am still a little bit sore from this vasectomy. Kind of surprising. I feel like it ebbs and flows, but I think it's almost like when I do more, it pushes me into a new place of having to heal that new motion. So I've been, for the last week, really kind of doing things almost normally the way I would. Like there's a lot of like arm holding on a boat even when it's not moving, because it's like, let me give you a good example. So like for me to reach that area back there, this floor is like sloped. I can't actually reach it unless I like step here, and then I have to hold on to here and like pull myself in. And like there's a lot of places like that in the boat where I have to twist funny, but I'm using a lot of like up, like I don't know, like a motion that I basically probably avoided for like 6 weeks. And so I think I pushed it a bit yesterday, so I'm a little nervous to pick up too much stuff.
So I'm tackling a couple projects today. I am trying to wrap up the install, at least for the plumbing wise, of our bow fuel tank, but I have to install this, which is a flow sensor, so I know how much fuel I move between the bow and the stern, because the fuel gauge up front is not visible, it's under the bed. There is a mechanical gauge up there, but I'd rather not move the cushions and the sheets of the bed every time I want to check it out. So I got this flow meter, which will count the amount of liters or gallons moving aft. So that'll help me when refueling to not overfuel the tank. I'm also adding a Raycor so that the fuel is polished as it goes from the bows of the stern tank. So my theory is I'm going to try to avoid having dirty fuel. Like, all this stuff is being installed in the engine room along the bulkhead. The complicating thing is I want to add some extra engine room insulation, which you can see here. We got to roll this stuff, so I can't install those components until I clean the engine room and mount some extra insulation so it quiets things down and makes our refrigerator run smoother. So that was about 3 hours later, so it took a little longer than I thought, but we are finally down to bare wood and a clean engine room. So now I'm going to start taking the measurements for the foam, which I had here. This is our flow sensor. This will tell us how much fuel has flown from the bow to the stern. And then I'm gonna put a Raycor next.
Well, I managed to make a dinner of reheated frozen pizza and hot dogs, which was very challenging. I should have filmed it because I kind of basically had to like stand like behind Bill, but I had one leg out here. And yeah, it just got late. It's almost 8. And so we had a random thing of hot dogs open and 2 random pieces of pizza. So I toasted some. And Bill just wants to finish everything while everything's open, since it's pretty disruptive on a small boat. It's 9 o'clock.
9:35 to be exact. I started this morning. This turned into a monster of a job.
Yeah, but Bill got insulation in on both sides now.
Up top, so this is fully insulated up top though. I just need a little more for the back too. But so this is the flow counter. This is the Raycor. And this is all for the bow tank. So this plumbing here is run through the boat to the forward end, and this is how we're gonna get, the pump's gonna pump through here, and then run a hose up here, and then to that conduit there. Alrighty. We are gonna go...
That is a scary sound with that look on your face.
A little pumped up today. Trying to get this boat sailing in like 4 days, and I have a lot of work to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and install the fill cap for our second fuel tank. I epoxied a hole previously to seal the deck, but now I gotta drill the hole and get the fuel pipe in. Same time, I also have to put a ground wire, in case there's any static electricity. It actually goes on the fill cap itself as well. Just dissipate any static charge to ground instead of letting a spark occur. Diesel's not that flammable, but it's required. I was gonna be ghetto and wire the pump to the anchor windlass solenoid, which has 12 volt up in the closet, but after I went through that whole battery box rewiring, the first wire I add to the boat, I'm gonna go wire to an unlabeled incorrect power source. So I'm gonna do it the right way and wire this whole way through the boat. But it's just a pain in the butt.
So it's gonna go behind this cabinet, through a little hole between these 2 cabinets, and then all the way through another hole in there, up there. It's actually Bill's birthday today. We might do a happy hour over at our friend's boat. We'll see. If we don't get out of here soon, it's just gonna get too hot. So we're really pushing.
Okay. Continuing to blow up the boat. But this is the power that I ran through the boat from the battery bank. This is gonna go to the fuel pickup, not the fuel pickup, to the fuel fill. And this is to dissipate any static electricity as we fill the boat. So it's gonna go to a ground, which is a through hull over there. So I'm gonna run this together through this closet, through the shelf, into the fuel tank area. All right, one more wire, and this is ready to go in the battery box. I installed the switch under here. Down is on, so hopefully nothing will hit this by mistake. That's why I put it the other way around. A little bit while later, the wire is here for the pump in the forward closet. While I'm in here, I'm also going to strap down the fuel tank. I am going to wire in this pump I also need to put ground wires on the fuel tank. Jason and I are testing for continuity between the wire that will be attached to our fuel fill, which runs to the fuel tank, and then the fuel sender, it goes from the fuel fill, which is on deck, hooked up to the fuel tank. The fuel tank is hooked up to the through hull, which is the ground, and we are looking for resistance. So we're gonna measure the amount of ohms that is going across all those wires to make sure if we had static electricity build up when we're filling, so there could be some static electricity generated by the fuel moving through the metal. If that generated a spark, it could cause a fire. I don't think with diesel it's that likely, but gasoline definitely. But I'm just following ABYC standards, and I'm gonna check for continuity now. Yeah, 0 ohms, so it's perfect. So pretty. Haven't seen my battery box in a while. I'm just gonna drill a hole here, and then run it into the battery box, and then put it in the fuse holder and give it a ground. Flick the switch. I hear it pump up forward. That's great news.
Yeah, and I've already poured my glass of wine, so
I'm ready. One more connection for our fuel tank. This hose is gonna go from the rake core that I installed in the engine room to the fuel fill on the stern tank. So basically the pump from the front will move fuel from that bow tank through the rake core, through this hose, into the stern tank. So when we're at sea and I need to transfer fuel, I just hit a switch and then watch the fuel gauge. One more connection and then the system will be operational.
So Demetrius has just popped back into our life. Say hi, Demetrius.
Hello.
For the afternoon.
And then we put him right to work. We wasted no time to get him back to work.
Yeah.
He came to go to the playa, the beach, the playa.
We're so shameless. But you know, actually, it's very good that you're here because we're testing the fuel tank right now. The new fuel tank.
So it is all hooked up.
And we
Good job, Bill. Yeah. It only took me like 3 weeks, but Dimitri's going to be pouring the fuel from up top, and I am going to be observing for leaks down here, and then we're going to test our transfer pump. So I have everything open from under the bed to the engine room where all the fittings are, and then the back fuel tank, so I can observe the whole flow of fuel through the boat.
So we're going to put about 5 gallons in. Bill and Grace are down there. We're going to check and make sure that there aren't any leaks before we add more fuel. So pray for us.
Let me know when you're ready, Demetrius.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, I'm going to go to the fuel. Yep, go for it. I hear the thing going. So you can see I'm observing here as well. So far, so good.
That's probably about 2 gallons.
Yeah, I don't see any leaks. I don't think we're gonna know until we fill it up, so maybe we'll just try to top up that tank.
Yeah, that's 5 gallons.
So now we're gonna try our fuel transfer pump. I installed the switch here.
Oh, jeez.
How bad is it?
Just I think it's a hose clamp. But it's still leaking.
Still leaking?
Yeah.
No.
It's a little drip now.
Take
It's still drip.
3. Still dripping?
Yeah, it's slow. Yep. Where's
Slower?
it from? The fittings are jammed on here are obviously way too small for the hose we're using. I think we're just not getting enough of a bite. You can see the gap in there. Usually it works for me though. Usually the hose clamp could take it up, but it's not working in this application.
What are you actually doing right now?
I'm just switching from this size fitting, which is very narrow, to the right size fitting for the hose. So we put the proper fittings on this time. PB blasted them, muscled them in. The geometry changed a little bit, so I'm gonna raise everything up, but we're gonna do a test now and see if it leaks.
Ooh.
Hit the switch, Demetrius!
Oh.
It's bueno.
Yay! Good job, honey.
All right, shut that off. The tank is full. Sweet, good job.
Should we hug?
Oh, smelly.